Today I'm building a bioactive terrarium for my crested gecko saga. Watch part 1 for the creation of the custom background. A bioactive build starts with a drainage layer. I use these balls of clay with mesh over top to separate them from the substrate. We're gonna need plants, and I decided to take some larger snake plants from a couple of my other gecko tanks. This one in Druid's tank is damaging the tank because it's trying to grow through the lid, and it's blocking the light for his other plants. He has about 7 other snake plants in here, and they came from the first 2 I planted when I built his setup. Of course, Druid woke up to see what I was doing to his forest and supervised while I pruned some of his other snake plants. It's basically the middle of the night for him, but Druid is my most curious gecko and he's always down to be part of whatever I'm doing, regardless of the time. Then I decided to take a large snake plant from Daenerys' tank too, and I felt bad because of course she happened to be sitting in it right then. She does have other ones though, and this one is blocking their light, so they will likely produce some more babies and she'll get her resting spot back.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes.
These plants will be tall for Saga's terrarium too, but they'll be the only 2 in there for the time being, and they'll most likely produce some babies. They tend to overtake a terrarium pretty fast. This huge plant is the baby of this guy in here. Both the plants and Saga will need light, so I installed this Jungle Dawn lamp from Arcadia. And then it's substrate time. I like using Reptisoil from Zoomed as the majority of my substrate mix, and I mix in a bunch of other things as well. I decided to combine it directly in the tank, taking care not to remove the mesh too much. First, I mixed the soil with some cocoa husk, which is a great way to reduce compaction of the substrate. It's also going to be a great food source for the isopods as it breaks down. Then I added some sphagnum moss and oak leaf litter and mix that in. These will also be used as a top layer once the plants and branches are in place. You may not realize, but decaying matter like the leaves and the moss are essential for an ecosystem to sustain itself. The cleanup crew will break them down, which keeps them fed, but it also provides nutrients in the soil for the plants. The substrate was pretty dry, so I added some water, which is also essential for keeping the isopods alive. And I mixed in some charcoal and the rest of the fluval stratum I had, which is a mineral-rich volcanic soil that stimulates plant growth, and I highly recommend it for bioactive setups. Their substrate shouldn't be sopping wet, and their terrarium should experience a dry out period during the day, but the soil should never get to the point of being dusty or dry enough to kill the cleanup crew. My preferred isopod species for bioactives like this are dwarf white isopods, which need at least a section of the substrate to remain moist in order to survive. When their conditions are right, they are incredibly hardy and breed fast. They may not look like much, but don't underestimate them. They are hardworking, easy to keep and breed, and the geckos don't even notice them. Sometimes with bigger species, geckos will end up eating them, and that will throw your cleanup crew off balance. With the video sped up, you can really see them all moving around in the soil. Combining dwarf whites with tropical springtails is a great choice, and they make an awesome team, but I don't have any springtails at the moment, so it's just isopods for now. I can add springtails later, and I find you have to regularly add them to maintain their numbers, whereas the dwarf whites will continue to thrive and reproduce as long as they have food and moisture. As you can see, I planted the 2 snake plants from Druid and Daenerys, and check out the roots of this small pothos. It has more roots than leaves, and it's mainly vines, so I'm hoping it'll love a terrarium environment. Something cool about pothos is that their vines will grow roots out of the soil and grab onto surfaces, allowing the plant to climb, and I'm hoping that's what it'll do to the cork I incorporated into the background. I added cork branches from Saga's current bin setup, and sometimes this can be the trickiest part of the build. You want to create height, but also vertical spaces, and ideally every branch should lead to somewhere like a feeding ledge or a hiding spot or a basking spot. You want to really fill in the empty space in the middle and top of the tank. I also included his hanging coconut hide, and the last thing was to add a layer of leaf litter. I couldn't be happier with how this build turned out. It was exactly what I was hoping for. It's easily my favorite bioactive build right now, but maybe that's just because it's new. There are so many cool hiding places and areas to climb. One of my favorite parts about planted tanks is watching them grow in and evolve over time too. I put in his magnetic feeding ledge, and then it was time for the resident himself. I've had Saga since he was a very little baby, and he is the sweetest guy. I'm really happy that I get to spoil him like this. I think he's going to love the height and having so many branches to climb, and I know he's going to be a sucker for the snake plants. You can almost see his mind being blown in real time here as he takes it in. Bioactive setups might seem like a lot of work, but I've found them to be very rewarding rewarding. It's also possible to go more simple with it, like you don't have to make a custom background, for example. But long term, I can't recommend it enough because aside from the glass or the feeding ledge, it's literally self-cleaning. It's aesthetically pleasing to look at a slice of nature in your home, just like you might with an aquarium. And there's also something rewarding about getting to watch your reptiles interact with items they'd have in nature. And I genuinely have found them to be more content with their live plants and cork branches and soil. It's amazing that we can provide that quality of life for them relatively simply.